What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks. DJ Bucky Rhett with you as we get a chance to look at the postseason matchups today. We get a chance to preview those as well as react to the game of the week from last week. But guys, as those that focus on personnel, focus on the draft, and focus on team building, this is a big week of change. And Buck, I'll get to you right off the top here because we had our lineup all ready to go, what we're going to talk about. And just a little bit before we started this show, the Tennessee Titans sprung one on us here. Ran Carthon, friend of the show, he's let go with the Tennessee Titans as their executive vice president and general manager after only 2 seasons with the team.
Yeah, look, this is a remarkable story because you talk about such a quick hook. You're really talking about 2 off seasons where you have an opportunity to put your stamp on the team and you let go before you're really even able to kind of get to the vision that you have for the team. This is a team that had salary cap issues. They really didn't have a solid plan in terms of what they wanted to do when Rand took over, and he doesn't get a chance to see it. And I understand the quick nature of the league. Normally, it used to be that the coaches were on the more volatile end of the spectrum, but now you're seeing that people have really quick hooks, short leashes for general managers, even though they kind of bring the players to it. The coaches are the ones that really are responsible for the product that you see on the field.
I think, when you look back to the last couple of years, you kind of wonder about the vision, right? John Robinson, Mike Vrabel, were there and they had some success together. Felt like maybe there was some, strife between different factions of the building there, and John Robinson's let go. Vrabel, not long after, is gone. In comes Carthon, and then they hire Brian Callahan, and now there's there seems to be at least a divergent path here on where they were going. Now, if this provides some clarity, if this provides them the path to the vision that they want to get to, then so be it. But man, it feels like there's just been a push and a pull and a tug, and not all in the right direction, or not at least all in the same direction in Tennessee. And maybe this brings them a step closer to it with them owning the number 1 overall pick. DJ, also kind of curious as to your thoughts on how much that might have played a role in this. Seeing the statement from Brinker, who's going to have, sounds like, a bigger role in kind of deciding the vision of this franchise. Like, there was a very distinct piece of that statement talking about talent evaluation at the highest level. And now they got to do that with the number 1 overall pick.
Well, a lot of times when you see change, there's quarterback issues. And this is a team that took Will Levis in the 2nd round the year before and then sat out the quarterback market this past year, which now, as we've had a chance to see it, you look at it and go, okay, well, they decided to take J.C. Latham to tackle. They decided to run it back with Will Levis, which cost them an opportunity at Michael Penix, J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix. And McCarthy, obviously, we didn't get a chance to see this year due to injury. But when you have Bo Nix lighting the world on fire and you have Penix showing a lot of promise, 2 guys who have, I think most everybody would agree would be better football players than what you have on campus there with Will Levis. I think that's part of the calculus there, miscalculating there. And then there's, that's how people end up losing their jobs. But this organization, Buck, when you look at one decision can alter a franchise, and when people say that, they think, oh, you selected a quarterback. That was the decision. No, the one decision to alter their franchise was trading A.J. Brown. Like, this thing has gone nowhere but down since that one specific move, which then seemed like that was where Vrabel was not happy. So then Vrabel's gone. And then you're like, okay, if you're the Titans, you're like, well, wait a second. Now that jobs are open, the guy that we let go seems to be the number 1 candidate on the market. So maybe we screwed that up. Maybe we shouldn't have fired Mike Vrabel. But that stuff circles back to that same trade that kind of disrupted what they had going there, which was a good bit of success.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about, like you guys are talking about the quarterback position and the mistakes that are made, a lot of times when you try to go on the cheap, right? We try not to go in the 1st round because we're trying to get the player where the talent suggests that he is, but it still doesn't change anything once they get onto the field. We judge them like we judge all franchise quarterbacks, and it's not necessarily fair to the player or to the people that brought the player in. I think the lesson to be learned, and Brian Daboll said this a couple of weeks ago when they won a game with Drew Lock at quarterback, He was like, your team goes basically as the quarterback goes. And if you have good quarterback play, typically your team is good. I think the lesson to be learned is you better make sure that the quarterback that you select in any round from anywhere in free agency or whatever is good enough to win games. Otherwise, you're going to be judged for it. And when it doesn't go your way, you also are going to be out the door just like the quarterback.
And just one little piece, one business piece of this thing here. The Tennessee Titans have broken ground on a brand new stadium, and they are trying to sell PSLs right now too. And just from some things that I've heard there in the Nashville area from some folks that, it's expensive, and I don't know what the demand has been, but if you want to generate some juice in your organization, you want to make the right pick with the number 1 overall selection, you want to go get your quarterback of the future and have that thing all ready to go and building towards some real positivity when you move into that building. These are also things I think you have to consider because there is a business side of it too.
Yeah, and right now I think I don't know. I haven't looked at. I don't look at markets or anything like that. But I would imagine Cam Ward is the favorite at this point in time to be the first pick, and that'll kick off a new era. And hopefully, whoever they decide at that position, they get it fixed. Because if you want to generate some excitement and sell those PSLs, it starts with getting that position right, and that is the challenge for a team that holds the first overall pick. All right, lots of other things to get to here. Rhett, I'll circle back to you because you spent time in the market, so I'll give you priority here. New England, Gerard Mayo, he is out. Your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, surprised that it only lasted a year. But I think the more you unpack and kind of dig into the tumult that was going on over that 1 year, maybe you start to see it a little bit. And, it did feel like there was, some timing issues with the way that the Belichick departure happened and the way that this was going to work for Gerard Mayo that led to this point here. This was not a talented roster. We have talked about that on this show a lot. How much of that falls on Gerard Mayo? I don't know. So, were there some missteps in the way that maybe he had publicly described and handled things? Yeah, I think so. But again, first-year head coach. I think you'd like to see him get the opportunity to have a better shot with a better roster. And I think that's what Robert Kraft was alluding to when he said he had to apologize. This was one of the hardest things he's had to do, and just did not see the growth though, and felt like it was necessary to make the move. Also wonder how much Mike Vrabel's availability played a role in all this as well. But I know that Gerard Mayo was beloved in that locker room when I was there, when he was a player. He was a great leader on that team. And I feel like he'll find his way back to being a great leader on the sidelines here for someone else here pretty soon.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Gerard Mayo that it didn't go his way. When I think about it, part of this was, the copycat nature of the league, where you have someone have success, so everyone to look towards Detroit. Former player in Dan Campbell, who's a quote unquote leader of men, installed as head coach. The Lions get it up and going, and so you kind of see that trend going. You have D'Amico Ryans make the move. You now have Gerard Mayo and Antonio Pierce. Mayo is out, and maybe Pierce is following him out the door soon. And what it does, though, is those guys won't get an opportunity. And so it's really important when you have those jobs, you're ready for those jobs. And for Gerard Mayo stepping in behind what we will say is the greatest coach that we've ever seen in pro football, there was going to be a drop-off in the level of coaching. And some of the whispers that you got from the locker room was a level of concern about the coaching and the teaching that they were getting. And anyone who comes behind Bill Belichick is certainly not going to be as polished, as buttoned up, as committed to dotting the I's and crossing the T's as a six-time Super Bowl champion. But Mayo had to understand that, and he had to understand that you better make sure that you have everything lined up correctly because, look, you can be judged based on what your predecessor did. And when you go like the Patriots did this year, regardless of what we say the roster was, at the end of the day, people judge you on wins and losses, and it certainly wasn't good enough for what they're expecting in New England.
Yeah, I had a argument yesterday with someone about this job because I thought it was the best job because of three things. You've got Drake May, you got the quarterback that I think's got a chance to be special. You've got the most salary cap space of any team in the league. I think it's 130 something million dollars worth of space to go out and fill a lot
all
of
on the
needs.
offensive line. Spend it.
Yes, so go spend it all there. And then you've got the 4th overall pick. So you got a top 5 pick to go along with that. Not to mention a history of a winning culture there that you have to believe there's remnants of that still are around that building. I argued, Buck, that it's a really good job. The pushback I got was, yeah, but the rest of the roster stinks. There's been turmoil in the organization. The fact you have a one-and-done coach says that it's not, well run at the very top. So it was an interesting discussion there. Where's your viewpoint of what kind of job this is?
Look, man, I think, to be honest, I think all these jobs can be good jobs if you understand exactly what you're walking into. I think it's really important that when you are a prospective head coach, you do understand who's in charge, how the thing is run, and you know why the previous people have failed in those roles. I think whoever replaces Gerard Mayo has to look at not only the on-field product, but the people that are around you, your general manager, the people in administration, the support staff, and what can I do to make sure that we are all pulling the boat in the right direction? If you get the alignment that you want, well, then you can succeed. So we can talk about Drake May being terrific. They do have a boatload of cap space. And I believe that Elliott Wolf and Alonzo Highsmith are really good talent evaluators. But I still think you have to understand, how can I do this with what I have until I get what I want on the field? That is the trick, because you got to win, because people don't have the patience to deal with the loser in any capacity.
I want to hit Buck real quick on this, then we'll move on from this topic. But I was just thinking about this. Help me with the timeline of Carolina basketball, Buck. So you had Dean Smith, right? Then was it Guthridge? And then it wasn't going as well. It, had some success, but not as well. So they stayed in the family, but there was somebody else in the family who was out at another school who had success in Roy Williams, and this is the exact same thing. Am I mistaken here? If Vrabel ends up being that guy?
Well, yeah, the timeline is a little different. It was Dean Smith, Guthrie, then it was Matt Doherty, who was the family member that we quickly got rid of to then get Roy Williams back. And so I understand what you're saying. And there is something to that. I just never thought that this would be a job that Mike Vrabel would want to take, just because of the enormous pressure that is on you when you step into those shoes that Bill Belichick left. Those footprints are massive. And for the Patriots fans, they expect to win at an unprecedented level. The 6 Super Bowls have spoiled them to the point where they think they should go every 2 or 3 years to the Super Bowl. That's not realistic in today's NFL, but that is what the expectation is going to be when you take that job in New England.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of former players step up in the front office and run teams for those teams. Off the top of my head, I don't think of many that have their, that are in the Ring of Honor, and they're going to take over and be the head coach of the team that they're in the Ring of Honor for as a player. It's a unique situation. The fact that we're doing Jacksonville next, I feel like, Bucky, I'll open the floor.
Just tee it up,
what
Bucky.
the heck is going on?
Let me get my popcorn.
Well, okay, so let's have an honest and transparent conversation about what took place in Jacksonville. Jacksonville released Doug Peterson, relieved him of his duties. Shad Khan, the owner, decided to keep Trent Baalke on. And I think for anyone, I would suggest go look at the press conference that Shad Khan had on Monday after the dismissal. And that will tell you everything that you need to know about why the team kept Trent Baalke on. Shad Khan talked about his centers of influence, the people that he leans on when it comes to football, are Trent Baalke and then Ethan Waugh. And so naturally, it is going to be hard for him to dismiss them when he really trusts them with, the jobs that they've done in terms of building the team. There is talent there. They certainly have a talented roster that has some blue chip players and those things. I would say that you still need to upgrade it, but there are some pieces in place for the team to win. Where this all came undone is when you had the collapse in 2023, and then you just failed to play well in 2024. 5-18 in your last 23 games. You lose 10 games by 1 score this season. You just couldn't see where things were going to turn it around, and that's why it led to the change. But I think the biggest surprise is that Trent Baalke is now hiring his 3rd coach in 5 years with the Jaguars. Most GMs don't get multiple bites at the apple when it comes to selecting head coaches.
Yeah, I don't think I could say it any better than you did, but they've got to find someone like pushing this forward. They got to find someone who brings out what they expected to be elite play from Trevor Lawrence. I felt like we saw it at times with Doug Peterson, certainly more than we did, in Trevor's rookie year, with that whole coaching debacle. But this has got to be the priority for this franchise. And that you've already paid Trevor Lawrence like an elite player, and now you've got to go get that out of him, right? Because that's the only way to kind of salvage this thing here from being just a total breakdown and rebuild. So that to me is what's on the docket here. I don't know that they're going to be, are they in that position to go get one of these top flight names? Are they in the Ben Johnson market? Are they in, the market to find one of these top offensive minds to come in there and kind of, get Trevor Lawrence going the way that they expect him to play? That to me is obviously priority one, Deej.
Maybe it's because I just went through it with the Chargers and I just saw a head coach and general manager come in together with complete alignment, with a background and history that mirrored one another, with shared values, and I saw them turn it around. I watched Washington go out and get a general manager and a head coach, put them in together, let Adam Peters get someone he's very comfortable with, that he is in alignment with, and Dan Quinn, and they hit the ground running. Oh, by the way, the benefactors were the two quarterbacks, Justin Herbert and Jaden Daniels, who both had excellent seasons, because guess what? We're all speaking the same language. We're all rowing the boat in the same direction. To attract a big-time candidate for this job without being more alignment there with the front office, I think is going to be a challenge. And it's interesting because if you'd have said a week ago, if it's a clean slate there, I would say it's arguably the most attractive job, because of all the different pieces that they have in place there. So I don't know. Yeah. We'll see how it all works. The other way that it happened, look, Denver goes out and gets Sean Payton, even though they had George Payton there, but Sean Payton's such a large presence. He came in there, and there was no way. If he wanted, he had the power to make the decision on George Payton's future. Now, that's going to be the message they're going to have to send if they want to get a big-time coach to come in there, that, hey, if it's up to you, you survey the landscape, you want to make changes, you can make changes.
Yeah, so I think it's really important because both of you guys have mentioned the quarterback and making sure you get the quarterback up and running, but I believe it's bigger than the quarterback. Because you can keep swapping play callers and changing people out at the top. But to me, in looking at the teams that are the most successful, they're culture builders. They're guys that create the alignment within the building. They also hold each of the players to a standard that is high, that is at a championship level, and then they're able to get maximum play from the team, which makes the quarterback better. I don't know what Trevor Lawrence's ceiling is. I've seen him have like great highs where he's played like a top 5, top 10 quarterback, but I've also seen him deal with injuries and those things. To me, the best thing that you can do in Jacksonville is build a team that isn't wholly quarterback dependent, that allows the running game to do some things, the defense to do things, and then you're asking Trevor to be a complementary piece as opposed to the entire piece of the puzzle. If you're able to do that, then you can win. But I think you have to be careful of trying to put too much on the quarterback and say that he is going to be the superhero that saves the day. I don't know if number 16 can do that in that environment.
Yeah, I would follow the Chargers blueprint, which was take an uber talented quarterback in Justin Herbert, who'd been knocked around a bunch, and take it off of his plate. We're going to run the ball. We're going to invest in the offensive line. We're going to protect you. And then guess what? When it's go time, when it's the last couple weeks of the regular season and we're going to go into the postseason, put your foot on the gas, you're healthy, and we're rocking and rolling. That's the Trevor Lawrence formula for me. It's already out there. Just copy the blueprint of what took place with the Los Angeles Chargers. Rhett, hit you on this one. Giants, Colts, both decide stay. Coach, GM, no changes made. More surprising move to you between those two organizations?
Honestly, I think it was more surprising in Indy that everyone's staying. At least in New York, you have a year where you're like, okay, this actually did work, right? In Brian Daboll's first year, Joe Schoen's first year. Now it hasn't worked since. So, I think you start to bring into question, sustainability and how you've built it that way. Obviously, the Saquon Barkley mess this year kind of painted that in a really bad light. Separating yourself from that, they need to get the quarterback right. And I think that one's a really interesting one because, if you read the tea leaves there for John Mara, the way he's talking about it felt like maybe there's a little bit more security with Joe Schoen than there is with Brian Daboll, where he talked about maybe there's some play calling issues that we've got to figure out. And if you're Joe Shane, like, and if you view this as, hey, I got to go win right now, or if you're Brian Daboll and you're saying you got to go win right now, do you want to do that with a rookie quarterback? There's some interesting dynamics that are going to be at play here, because it sure does sound like the rope is pretty short there and the patience is running very thin from ownership. But yeah, I'm a little bit more surprised on the Colts side, just because we have not really seen that success. Maybe the 1 year with Phillip Rivers, but they haven't gotten the quarterback thing right. And maybe they got one more shot to do it here with Anthony Richardson. And if not, we'll be talking about this again next year.
What do you think, Buck?
Yeah, when you think about when you think about Indianapolis and the struggles, like, people will talk about Anthony Richardson and everything is on him. I think the Indianapolis Colts have a serious decision to make about Anthony Richardson. It's not just what we've seen on the field in terms of like the completion percentage and all of those things. It's the maturity and the questions that persist off the field. People talk about like they had to sit him down because of the lack of professionalism, not necessarily being on time or the most diligent when it came to the work. You have to judge him on his play. You can't worry about draft position and those things. This has to be one. If you're Shane Steichen, I have to move beyond, this was the number 4 overall pick. I got to put the best player in position to win games. And I'll say this, having watched the Colts twice against the Jaguars, and both times Joe Flacco played, I'm a huge believer that if Joe Flacco was the starting quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts the entire season, the Indianapolis Colts would have been in the postseason. That's the difference between the play of the veteran and the play of the young guy. At some point, Anthony Richardson has to earn the right to be the starting quarterback, as opposed to being given that job just because of his draft pedigree.
Buck, is in your opinion, and you saw that team twice, and that's why I'll give you this one, but Kirk Cousins better than anybody they got on their roster?
Look, I think Kirk Cousins could give them what Joe Flacco was giving them. So if you don't, they're comparable when it comes to age-wise. But yeah, Kirk could give them a consistent presence if protected. They have a running back in Jonathan Taylor that allows them to run the football. Jonathan Taylor is one of the top 5 rushers in the league this year. If they lean into the running game and use the passing game as a complement to that, they can do it. And if they are better on defense, where they can control the score, they can kind of play complementary ball with a more ball control approach on offense. Yeah, Kirk Cousins can win there. And we've talked about this job before, whether it's Kirk Cousins, Daniel Jones, whatever reclamation project that you want at quarterback. It's a nice spot because you have a quarterback guru and Shane Steichen, and you have enough talent to win games there.
Well, my question is, like, how much more does Kirk Cousins offer you than Joe Flacco at this point? With what we saw from Kirk Cousins down the stretch in Atlanta.
I think you're betting on that is a product of him not being healthy.
Right.
That he's going to have another offseason to get it removed from the Achilles, and he'll be able to function under center in a play-action offense, which is who he is and what he is, and not what they did in Atlanta. That would be the argument.
Correct. But, based off what we saw in the second half of both, I don't think there was
one
a difference.
touchdown,
so, yeah,
9
you're
picks
banking on
for Cousins in his last 5 games. Not great. That's why all those guys. It's all the vets. That's what you're going to be doing your homework on. They're in no man's land.
Yeah, but if I'm Brian Daboll with the Giants, and I think that I got to win right now, I'd be looking to go get a player like Kirk Cousins rather than putting all my eggs in a rookie basket here to try to win, with an offensive line that's, been terrible for the last couple of years. And not to say that would benefit Kirk Cousins any, but I'm just saying, like, man, I'd rather have the veteran quarterback that I've seen a track record of than, player X that we might get in the draft.
So I'll just push. Hold on, because I want to get you on this, because I think that's different expectations though. If you bring a veteran in, the expectation is you're going to the playoffs or you're out. If you bring a rookie quarterback in, the bar is lower. If the quarterback's getting better throughout the year, you can make the argument that, hey, he's getting better. I don't want to change up everything. If the quarterback's getting better throughout the year, I think that you could make that case. I think you have more grace with the younger guy.
See, I think Red is onto it. I don't know if the Giants in particular, I don't know if the Giants could go 6-11 with a quarterback that is showing promise. I think for them, it's.
I'm not saying 6, but I'm saying let's go. They don't make the playoffs, and they go, let's go 8. They're 8-9 team, but the quarterback throws for 3,500 yards.
That's a 5-win jump. We got to win 5
But
more
they might not.
games.
I mean, the Giants are picking what, third?
Yeah.
I think. Yeah,
They may
I
not
mean,
be
like
able to get their
you might be
quarterback.
shut out. I mean, depending on how many quarterbacks we think are actually worthy of, picks way up there. Like it might not even
It
matter.
might be
at this
it might
point.
be shut out. Whoever's picking 2 might be shut out in this draft.
That's right. That's right. That's a story for another day, though, right?
TBD. We'll get there. We'll get
Yeah.
there. All right, let's take a little break here. We've got plenty more to get to here. Busy week in the National Football League. It's time for Cruising to Victory, presented by Royal Caribbean. And before we look forward, guys, let's look back real quick. Buck, we haven't had a chance to catch up on this one, but the Lions, in a game that looks more lopsided than it really was, they take care of the Minnesota Vikings 31-9. Some late scores, some red zone failures for the Vikings. Sam Darnold seems to be the kind of the punching bag on this one. But what was your takeaway after digging into it?
Takeaway, man. Dan Campbell and his coaching staff, they're fearless. We can talk about the injuries and all that other stuff, but it doesn't change the expectation that they have within that building. They expect to win. They expect to play at the championship level. And the game plan that they featured against the Minnesota Vikings suggests that they have the ultimate confidence in their players. On defense in particular, they're going to go man to man. And even though there were some double teams and brackets and those things that were cleverly hidden, they challenged the Minnesota Vikings one-on-one on the outside. Press coverage, very aggressive in their approach, and then they dialed up the pressure to go at Sam Darnold. And even though Sam Darnold had been one of the best in the league this season against the blitz, the Lions were undeterred and they were able to get away from it. But I'm going to say this. If this was a baseball game, there were a lot of long foul balls. You better make sure if they play them again, they better make sure that those things don't go inside the foul pole, because as lopsided as it was in Detroit's favor, it could be the other way the next time they match up if they don't tighten up the coverage.
Well, look, the thing that I would say is Aaron Glenn deserved that reception that he got at the Pistons arena. He was on it in this game. 14 plays in the red zone for the Vikings, 0 red zone touchdowns. They clouded the picture and made Sam Darnold question his process, and then held it just long enough for the pressure then to get there. That was, I thought, a masterclass in dealing with a very good offense and a very good offensive scheme that Kevin O'Connell puts out there every week and puts into the hands of Sam Darnold. And now, if you are the Vikings, and we'll get into this here in a second, pushing this forward to that Rams game on Monday night, but you've got a little bit of a reclamation to do. Like, how do we get back to being us? How do we get back to having that confidence in what we do? But man, that's what the Lions did. They not only won that game, but they planted some seeds of doubt for me in what the Vikings can do moving forward.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to what Buck said too, though. Those long foul balls. I mean, you have one where Justin Jefferson catches that ball 95 times out of 100. It was a little bit high, but that's a back of the end zone. That's a touchdown. Then you have a protection breakdown. They get to Sam's hand on that double move. It was a sluggo, I believe, from Jefferson. That would have been a layup touchdown. He just threw it a little bit flat. I just think cleaning up the red zone. Buck, you've been in these moments on these teams, and I know maybe it's different going into a playoff week. But is there something too, if you're Kevin O'Connell, that it's just, hey, we're gonna spend a majority of our time this week just dialing in red zone. We're just gonna clean up some of that stuff. We're gonna give it a little more attention. You ever on a team where that type of a practice week where it maybe changed up just a little bit, put a little more emphasis on that, or third downs?
Yeah, I'm actually glad you said that, because I think you'll get this approach. I played for David Shaw's dad, Willie Shaw, who's the offensive coordinator when I played for the Raiders. And he always talked about, when you're building your team, early in the season, you have to figure out what kind of team you have. Are you a team that can aggressively go after? Are you a bend but don't break team? And he said, if you're one of those teams that's a bend but don't break team between the 20s, you need to spend most of your time on the practice field working in the red zone, because your job is to make sure that in the red zone, we're the best at it. We have most of our tricks and gadgets in the red zone. So spend more time on task being good there. We're not going to give up the big play in between the 20s, because our work is done in the red zone. What you're saying about the Minnesota Vikings, based on how they lost to the Detroit Lions, you 100% add some minutes to the periods in the red zone. You spend maybe 2 days working on red zone efficiency as opposed to just the 1 day. To me, this game was won and lost in the red zone. So the Minnesota Vikings, if they have another opportunity against the Lions, they certainly have to spend more practice time doing that and have some beaters to take advantage of some of the things that the Lions threw out at them in that winner go home situation that they saw in Week 18.
What about the Rams side of it, Rhett?
Yeah, look, I think the Rams have everything they need to win this game and did win a game like this at home against the Vikings. I think it was back the second game after their bye week. And that was kind of the beginning of this surge for LA. They were getting everybody back healthy. You had Puka, you had Cooper, both going. You had about almost 100 yards from Kyron Williams. Like, you saw the formula. Had a few sacks from that talented young defensive front. They got after Sam Darnold in that game. And then, they got some contributions from the auxiliary players like Robinson, seeing here, catching the game winner. I think that that game, when you look back on it, showed us what the Rams are at their best. And if they are at their best, I think they win this game against the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, I'll tell you what's a confident bunch. When you rest up, not caring who the opponent is, whether it was Washington,
better believe it,
which you would have thought they would have preferred, but they were like, hey, whoever's coming's coming. We don't care. We're going to rest up and get ready to roll, Buck.
I mean, look, I think there's a really unique approach because in listening to Sean McVay talk about that, he said our job and our goal and our expectation is to not only be in the playoffs for one game, but to play multiple games. So at some point, we're going to see these teams anyway. To me, that is a confident coach that doesn't matter. Anytime, any place, anywhere. Like, we're going to play whoever. I dig it. I mean, I appreciate it. We'll see if it comes to fruition. If they do benefit from having a home game, like, they've been pretty good on defense and they play really well at home. That might have also gone into their thinking too.
They're trying to win a Super Bowl, not win the first round of the playoffs, right? So if this puts you in a better position to do that, to rest some of these guys, then so be it.
Yeah, unless being the 3 would have given you a home field advantage in the championship game, and being the 4 sends you on the road, that could change it. But yeah, we'll see. I don't think that's likely a scenario to break down. Let's get to the next one. Washington, Tampa Bay, another rematch that we saw earlier this year. Buck, I'm so excited to see Jaden Daniels, but I say that, and I go back to what I said a few weeks ago. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, although they mess around with some teams and keep some teams in games that maybe they shouldn't, man, I must saw them on their best day, because when they came out and whipped the Chargers, I was like, this is one of the most physical teams in the NFL. Both lines of scrimmage, very physical. And that's a team that I don't know that I'd be all that excited to face in the playoffs.
Yeah, how about that? It's funny, man, because I don't want to say, in essence, addition by subtraction, but you would think this team would have fallen apart after they lose Chris Godwin and some of the others on offense. But they appeared to find a formula that works for them offensively. They started running the ball right down people's throats while using Mike Evans as the ultimate eraser in the passing game. Baker Mayfield is playing really well. And what they've done with Baker Mayfield is they have him on a bit of a pitch count, but they've let him go past that pitch count when they need it. And he's been really good, really efficient, really effective finding those open receivers in those various windows. And then anytime you play a Todd Bowles defense, regardless of who they have in the back end, they are going to test your courage and your discipline with relentless pressure. The Buccaneers are a tough team, and they can give Jaden Daniels problems. But I'm not going to lie, I'm excited to see how the young quarterback handles this opportunity on a big stage in the postseason.
Just from a team building perspective here, looking at this game, if I am one of the, just to kind of bring it all full circle with some of these teams that are going to be looking at new head coaches and new personnel executives, I'm taking a close look at what Jason Light has done in Tampa and what his staff and Mike Greenberg, and I know it's already gotten an interview request, I think, from the New York Jets, John Spytek as well. Like, their formula for building, rebuilding, and retooling offensive and defensive lines is among the best that we have seen in this league. I mean, the way that they continue to find premier players in the draft up front on both sides. Graham Barton, the latest on the offensive side for Tampa, but they've gone to all corners. I mean, Hobart College with Ali Marpet, who did some good things for him. Alex Kappa, you remember, started in Tampa and then, got a big deal to go to Cincinnati. Like, they have found really good players there and on both sides. And I think that's what it's going to come down to. Like, can they continue to provide some time for Baker Mayfield against a team in Washington who is a top 5 sack team in this league as a group, right? So if they can continue to find time for Baker, open up some holes for Bucky Irving and Rachaad White, I think the Buccaneers march through to the second round.
Yeah, I do think it's going to be a fun game. One of the ones I'm looking forward to the most. Maybe not as much as this next one though. Green Bay, Philly. For having the year Philly had, man, it's not a walk in the park with the 7th seed coming in here with the Green Bay Packers, who a little bit stumbling down the home stretch here, Buck, but it's still a dangerous team. They played to kick off the season in Brazil, and they're going to see each other again here. A very contested game there in Brazil. And I think Philadelphia's got the better roster. I think they've got the better team, but man, that is not a layup first round game for a 2 seed.
No, not a layup. And the Green Bay Packers are talented. They have tremendous depth that can give you problems. It'll be tested, though. They lose Christian Watson to an ACL injury that robs them of a deep ball playmaker for Jordan Love. But they have the running game, and they have a team that is really a bit of a chameleon when it comes to their offensive style. They can run the ball heavily with Josh Jacobs. They have a bit of a ball control offense where they can throw it around to a bunch of different pass catchers. And when Jordan Love values the ball, takes care of the ball, this offense is one that allows them to play keep away. And they can put pressure on Philadelphia by using their offense to be their best defense. And oh, by the way, Jeff Hafley and their defense, they turned the ball over a ton. Really challenging game for the Philadelphia Eagles. They got to be on there. They got to bring their A game if they're going to win it.
I feel like the movie Rounders was playing in my head when this match. Right back to where I started with 3 stacks of high society here. Right back to where we started down in South America with the Packers and the Eagles. Now, a lot has changed, certainly. But, for the Packers, coming out of that game, Jordan Love was banged up. A little bit banged up in this last season finale for Green Bay too. Sounds like he's going to be fine. My biggest question is, what's the word on Jalen Hurts, and what's it going to be like for him in the concussion protocol these last couple of weeks to get back out there full throttle with this group? This has not been a last couple of weeks of the season that has been free from drama, as is the case in Philly. So you don't want to get this thing started off poorly, right? Like, how does Philly react if Jalen's got some rust early? That's something that I'll be watching for. How do those receivers react? How does this offense come together? Good thing is they can hand it off to the best running back in the league. So we'll see how that plays out. But that's what I'm curious about.
Yeah, I think that them being able to rest, Philly being able to rest last week, get Saquon fresh legs. I think that's a big part of it. And look, Hurts, I imagine he'll be cleared and ready to go by the time we get to game day, and he's going to have fresh legs as well and be rested. So I'm telling Jalen, let's spend a little extra time on the legs in treatment. Not really worried about the shoulder right now. Let's get ready to roll with our offensive line. You've got fresh legs. Saquon's got fresh legs. We'll worry about the passing game when we get to round number 2. But let's take care of business against the Green Bay Packers. And I do think the best way for them to do that is on the ground. All right, guys, let's get over to the AFC. Buffalo, Denver, Buck. I feel like this is a game where, all these other, matchups, you can make the argument and make the case for the upset. I feel like nobody has made a strong argument for the Denver Broncos to win this ball game. And I think there is a path. What is that path in your opinion?
Oh, I think that path is their defense really getting after Josh Allen, really suffocating the running game and making Josh Allen play at a superhero level, and hoping that bad Josh Allen shows up where he makes a couple risky throws that go the other way. This Broncos defense leads the league in sacks. They can get after, and Vance Joseph, look, he's fearless when it comes to attacking the quarterback. If you're Sean Payton, look, and I hate this saying, but you're playing with house money because no one necessarily expected them to be there. They can be free and loose when they play this game. The pressure is really on the Buffalo Bills to knock off a team that everybody expects them to win. Lean on the defense. See if you can shrink the game with the running game. And look, man, let Bo Nix make a handful of plays with his arm and leg. If they can get it to the fourth quarter, that's when I think you're trying to win it if you're Sean Payton. I think this is a game where you do everything in your power to make it a 15-minute game by being really close to the Buffalo Bills in that last quarter.
Yeah,
Brett, can I give you something real quick here? Let me just give you something real quick. Sometimes we see, you get the play caller, you're holding the thing. Sean Payton likes to hold that card up there, and there's usually a message there. So if he flips the card around this week, this is what it's gonna look like here. It's gonna have all these screens. It's gonna have a million of these screens right here. It's gonna have a good bit of runs right here, and then our pure pass, just a couple of those. That's gonna be our Sean Payton call sheet this week.
Get Marvin Mims going on some of those screens, right? Get Troy Franklin the ball, maybe down the field. Just
Tight
kinda
end,
loosen
every
things up a
screen
little
you
bit.
ever imagine. Tight end
Yeah.
screens. We're going to dust it all off.
Yeah, that run section is kind of what I'm a little bit curious about, especially if we get some adverse weather up there in Orchard Park, New York. So I don't, obviously that has not been their strength this year, but I think this will be a really fun test. For a quarterback in Bo Nix, who's a heck of a competitor, just like Josh Allen. I think there's some real similarities there in the way that they approach the game. Now we kind of get to see it unfold.
Yeah, and then here I have Buck. I've just got the call sheet handed to me for the Buffalo side of things, and that's all you got to do.
Josh, do you? I get it.
That's it.
I get it.
That's
dig
all we
that.
need.
I'm with
These
that.
are good
I
call
am with
sheets.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a professional call sheet maker over here. I just free service that I'm offering up to the rest of the league.
Oh my God!
Now this is
I
going to
love
be
it.
Josh Allen. This is I'm hoping that he just stays healthy and we get to get the full Josh experience where he's running the ball like 10, 12, 13 times to go along with these incredible throws he's capable of making. But it's because it reminds me, Buck, of what you get to see. It's high school football with him. Like he plays the game like you would if you're at a high school and you just say, you're the biggest, baddest dude on my team. You play quarterback, and then I'm going to make them tackle you as many times as possible.
I mean, why not? When you have the best player, you don't make it really complicated. Give him the ball, give him opportunities more than anybody else, and let him have the biggest impact on the game. That's how Buffalo plays. And it's funny, at a time when we look at this team and we look at their roster, particularly one that is without Stephon Diggs on the perimeter, one that kind of shed a lot of the pieces around him, they perform better. And let's talk about Josh Allen and what we see from quarterbacks. It's the maturation and the evolution of him at the position. The guy that was kind of the gunslinger, the one that played like John Wayne, he still has some of that, but he really reserves it until red zone situations or end of game gotta have it situations. You don't see him run around recklessly for most of the game, but it's only in those two areas when you gotta have a play at the end of the game or at the end of the half or down in the red zone. Will he put that cape on and go and do Josh Allen type stuff?
Yeah, I mean that's the formula.
Right. You know who he is.
Yeah.
You know who he is, by the way. He's if Derrick Henry spent like 6 years training with David Morris, that's who Josh Allen is.
Yeah, Demo. What's up, buddy? See you down in Mobile.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
We'll see you down there. Yeah.
Hey, that tells you that guy can trade some quarterbacks now. If that's the case, let's get Derrick Henry going.
Dude, he's literally, if the rushing touchdown leaders, it is Derrick Henry, Ezekiel Elliott, and Josh Allen. That's insane.
Yeah, there we go.
That's
All right,
your Ezekiel Elliott too. Your Ezekiel
I know.
Elliott.
Chargers, hey, you never know. Always have a veteran in reserve here. A hungry vet. Him and Bosa, but reunited again, like we're back at Ohio State in like 2016.
Right.
All right, let's get to Pittsburgh, Baltimore. Third time. Is that an issue, Buck? You've been on teams that have seen a team for the third time postseason?
Well, anytime you play a division rival in a playoff game, it's tough because they really know you and you can throw out the records and those things. And for this team, it's very difficult because Lamar Jackson has typically struggled against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not the last time, but if you go back and look at his history, he's had a tough time dealing with the Mike Tomlin coach defense. That would trouble me a little bit. But let's say this about the Baltimore Ravens. This is the version of the Ravens that we thought we would see from beginning to end. They're playing their best football heading to the stretch. Some of that has been fueled by that defense and the move of Kyle Hamilton to free safety. Kyle Hamilton has cleaned up some of the issues that they had in the middle of the field, the tackling, the blown coverages and those things. They've tightened that up. And so they're playing competent football on defense. And then on offense, man, they just continue to put you in a bind because it's not only Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, the playmakers on the outside and the explosiveness of this offense that keeps you up at night if you're a defensive coordinator having to face them.
Yeah, I just wonder, the Steelers have been in this position before, right? A couple of years ago when they started out, whatever it was, 11-0 and then kind of had that losing streak to finish up. This feels a little bit like that for Pittsburgh. I know they've had some success, although albeit not recently, as far as the last couple of weeks go against the Ravens. But man, it just feels like the way things are going, it's going to be hard for them to pull out of this tailspin a little bit with the way that, they've been playing on offense in particular, and what we've seen from George Pickens, when he came back, and obviously what we've seen from Russell Wilson over the last month. Obviously talk about, Justin Fields moving forward and all that into next year. I just this feels like the Ravens are a juggernaut, and that they are rolling into a marquee matchup later in the postseason with the Bills or the Chiefs.
Yeah, I would say the Pittsburgh formula is deep shots, deep shots, deep shots. You're just hoping Pickens comes down with a couple. You're hoping you get a couple flags, some 30, 40-yard penalties. I don't see them moving the ball. They just haven't shown the ability to do that. So they're going to rely on the defense getting them some short fields. Maybe it's a punt return that gives them a short field. And then it's go balls and penalties. I mean, that's a tough way to live. So I'm looking at more in this one. We'll see if the Steelers can make this more of a ball game. Chargers, Houston. Look, it's a big difference for the Chargers getting the 5 versus the 6, going to Houston versus going to Baltimore. You got to be careful. I mean, Houston, you don't want to be disrespectful there, but just off the years they've had, and we just saw Houston and Baltimore square off, and we saw how lopsided that was. So there is a big difference there between those opponents. But, Buck, to me, the matchup to watch in this game that I'm looking forward to, Rashawn Slater is back at practice today. I'm sure he'll be rocking and rolling, ready to go. Him and Joe Alt going up against Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter. That's, if they can get that done and take care of the edges, Justin Herbert's in a really good groove right now, and McConkey's is playing really, really well. Will Dissly's found a role. Quentin Johnston had 13 for $186 last week, coming off his best game as a pro. So
went under the radar.
Offensively, they're starting to peak, and J.K. Dobbins, since he's come back healthy, is a nice weapon there out of the backfield. So I feel like the Chargers are peaking at the right time, but I also feel like the Texans. I would say you'd use the word disrespected. I think they're being disrespected by a lot of folks as you go into this matchup.
Yeah, they've been disrespected because the expectations were so significant for this team. We talked about this team being a Super Bowl favorite, and they haven't played to that level. But it doesn't mean that they can't play to that level in the postseason. A lot of it really hinges on C.J. Stroud. What I am looking for, I want to see how Jesse Minter goes after C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud has not been the same player that we saw last year. He's missed the mark. He's had more turnovers than we saw his rookie season. How does Jesse Minter kind of attack him? Does he sit back in coverage and dare him to fit it into tight windows versus those zones? Does he play a little tighter and snugger on the guys? Because let's be real, the number one threat that they have in the passing game is Nico Collins. If they can run the ball, it allows Nico Collins to get loose on play action. But if they can contain Joe Mixon, and I guess you even have to say Dameon Pierce, they then are able to put all their eyes on Nico Collins and force C.J. Stroud to beat him left-handed.
Yeah, look, when I think about the Texans, obviously this has been a disappointment of a year, yet they're still AFC South champions and have been for like a month. They've had time to figure it out. It hasn't quite worked yet. But when you go back, if I'm the Texans, I go back and look at where we've been, where we were at this time last year. It's kind of similar, in terms of personnel that's available, right? Remember Tank Dell got hurt, a few weeks before the postseason started, was done for the year. And it was kind of the Nico Collins show at receiver. They were getting maybe a little bit more out of Dalton Schultz at the time, it felt like. But I think they're in a better place defensively. And, that was a nice confidence building one drive for C.J. Stroud, Nico Collins, and the Texans offense, albeit against the Titans, but got that touchdown. He was 6 of 6. They've won a playoff game, kind of in this spot before. So if they can take care of the football and keep C.J. Stroud relatively clean, I think there's still an opportunity and a pathway here for the Texans to get a dub.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good game. I'm looking forward to going to Houston and checking that one out. A little cold though. Looking at I know it's indoors, but just weather-wise for me, walking outside is going to be a challenge. I don't know if that's going to be me. I think I'm going to be in the hotel room
into that
watching some college
Arctic freeze going on down there.
Yeah, that's got hotel watch some college tape written all over it for this weekend as they get ready.
Go down a little early and head over to the Cotton Bowl.
But it's like Houston to Dallas with like 4 hours.
Not a great drive in the cold.
Yeah, it's not happening. Yeah, ice,
bad conditions.
Not going to happen. By the way, I guess we'll have more information on this going forward, but I've been told by a little birdie in my ear that rookie draft was a tie this year. I tied him, Buck. I reeled him in.
It's
I reeled him.
We need to go back and look about whether we actually did week 18 last year. Okay. That's what we need to go back and look. Whether we played through week 18 last year.
Can't wait to next year. Can't wait to next year. We get a chance to play next year.
Yeah. Hey, look, we protect our turf here. That's what we do. We protect our turf. Bucky and I have been on this thing for a decade plus, and Rhett comes in and just winning it. That wasn't going to happen. We couldn't let that. Yeah. Come on. Co-champs. By the way, I got a patch for high school. We were co-champs of the Harbor League, and they didn't put a dash between the co and the champ, so it just says co-champs. Co-champs Harbor League. Debated on whether to put it on my jacket. I was like, what am I supposed to? This is terrible. Come on. It's embarrassing to print a co-champs patch. So nothing will be hanging on the bookshelf behind me. We got to win these things outright. All right. This has been a fun one. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. We've enjoyed digging into these matchups. Can't wait for a great weekend of football. We'll see you next time right here on Move the Sticks.